Swordtails are one of the quintessential fish in the aquarium hobby, amazing both new and seasoned hobbyists alike with their unique and amazing colors. Along with that, there are also some amazing and very beautiful wild type swordtails as well. I currently keep both types of fish here in the fish barn, so let's dive in and talk about how I keep my swordtails. To get started, I do want to briefly cover some basic things about swordtails. You can find these fish in North and Central America, from Mexico down to Honduras, where they live in a wide variety of rivers, streams, and ditches where there's always heavy vegetation. There are 17 different species of swordtails that are divided into two different classes, the northern and southern swords. The most common swordtail species is a southern fish known as the Xiphophorus helleri, which is one that's found readily in the aquarium hobby. This species has been around for decades, with breeders starting with a fish very similar to the green swordtail of today, and then crossing it with platies to create all the wonderful morphs we see today. I find that swordtails are generally easy to care for. Since your typical Xiphophorus helleri will get to be about 5 inches long or longer, I generally like to keep my swordtails in a 29-gallon tank or larger. However, I will keep some of my larger species in colonies in 40-gallon breeders. There are some smaller species that will do great in a 20-gallon tank. For substrate, I either like to use pool filter sand or gravel. And for filtration, I just use a simple sponge filter. I prefer to use the aquarium co-op sponge filters, but any sort of sponge filter will do. I generally avoid things like hang on the back filters, since they're pretty good at sucking up small fry. I run my current fish room with an auto water change system, but I would highly recommend having some sort of regular water change regimen, either weekly or bi-weekly. To help with filtration and fry cover, I also like to keep my swordtails with plants. Some of my favorite plants are Crypts and Vallisneria. From a temperature perspective, I like to keep fish like my Xiphophorus helleri and other southern swordtails at around 78 degrees Fahrenheit. If you happen to have the northern swordtails, those fish do great in an unheated tank, anywhere from 70 to 72 degrees, and even do fine into the 60s. All these fish do like alkaline water and a higher pH level. The current pH level in the fish barn is around 7.8 to 8.0, which suits them quite nicely. In terms of feeding your swordtails, I found these fish really do take a wide variety of different foods, from flake, pellet, live, and frozen. One thing I really do like to add in terms of their diet is some vegetable matter, which I accomplished using spirulina flakes. Another key in keeping these fish healthy is purchasing healthy stock from the beginning. I generally buy my fish from local breeders and local fish stores, and I always inspect the sales tanks to ensure all the fish in that particular sales tank are happy and healthy. One thing I would highly recommend is having a stocking level of your swordtails from one male to every 2 to 3 females. Male swordtails, particularly the wild types, can be very territorial with one another and will also constantly harass the female fish. If you have a high ratio of males to females, your females will always be under constant harassment from the males. Swordtails can be a little bit on the aggressive side, but I found them to be pretty good tank mates. To avoid hybridization issues, I would avoid stocking these fish with their Xiphophorus cousin, the platies. This is extremely important if you're keeping wild type fish, since these fish generally have specific locations, and you really don't want to ruin the genetics of a wild type fish. Other than avoiding hybridization, I really have had great luck with swordtails with a wide variety of different community type fish, like rainbows, tetras, rasboras, Corydoras catfish, and many others. One of my favorite combinations actually is keeping swordtails with mollies. While they're both live bearers, these fish won't interbreed with one another. I have quite a few examples of that here in the fish barn, and personally, I think swordtails are a great community fish for your larger community aquarium. So let's talk about breeding swordtails. Sexing swordtails is extremely easy. The males are generally smaller, possess the swordtail, and also have a stick-like appendage in place of their anal fin called the gonopodium, in which they use to inseminate the female. Females are larger, with no sword, and will possess your typical anal fin structure. Swordtails are live bearers, which means that they give birth to live young. After insemination, the gestation period for the females is around 30 days, where they'll give birth from anywhere to 10 to 50 young. These young will generally fall to the bottom of the aquarium, so having some plant cover on the bottom is extremely helpful in terms of fry survival. I found that your domestic type swordtails are generally not fry eaters, but some of the wild type fish are better than others, so I would highly recommend doing some research on your individual species. These fry are extremely easy to raise and will take baby brine shrimp, crushed up flake food, and other appropriately sized foods. I hope that you enjoyed taking a look at how I care for swordtails here in the fish barn. At the end here, I'll go ahead and put a playlist of all my live bearer care guides in case you're interested in learning about some of the other species that I keep here in the fish barn. So with that, stay safe, stay fishy, and I'll catch you on the next video.